Carb counting and diabetes. Carbohydrates, or carbs, are naturally found in certain foods. For example, grains, sweets, starches, legumes, and dairy all contain different amounts of carbs. Carbs are available in many different forms, however, the fundamental three are starch, fiber, and sugar. When buying packaged meals, the term overall carbohydrate refers to all three of those types. When food and drink with carbs are digested, the carbs smash down into glucose to fuel our cells, and the body's blood glucose, or blood sugar, the level rises. In humans without diabetes, blood sugar degrees upward thrust after consuming, however, the body's insulin reaction maintains degrees from growing too excessive. If you've got diabetes, the manner would not work as designed. How carb counting can assist your blood glucose management depends on your remedy routine and whether or not now is no longer your body makes insulin. Type 1. If you've got type 1 diabetes, your pancreas no longer makes insulin, so you want to take background insulin in addition to offset the carbs for your meals with mealtime insulin doses. To do this, you need to recognize precisely what the number of carbohydrate grams is for your MyQ carb counting. Type 2, because humans with type 2 diabetes are immune to insulin and might not produce a sufficient of it, it's vital that you bear in mind your carb intake. To keep away from blood sugar spikes, it enables to devour a constant quantity of carbs at food for the duration of the day, as opposed to all at once. People taking oral medicinal drugs might also additionally use a greater primary shape of carb counting than the ones on insulin. How do you count carbs? Carb counting at its most basic level involves counting the number of grams of carbohydrate in a meal and matching that to your dose of insulin. If you take mealtime insulin, that means first accounting for each carbohydrate gram you eat and dosing mealtime insulin based on that count. You will use what's known as an insulin to carb ratio to calculate how much insulin you should take in order to manage your blood sugars after eating. This advanced form of carb counting is recommended for people on intensive insulin therapy by shots or pumps, such as those with type 1 and some people with type 2. While humans with type 2 diabetes who do not take mealtime insulin might not want unique carb counting to preserve their blood sugars in line, a few options to do it. While a few pick out to stay with conventional carb counting, there are others who do a greater primary model of carb counting primarily based totally on carbohydrate choices, in which one choice carries approximately 15 grams of carb. Still, others use the diabetes plate method to devour an affordable part of carb-containing ingredients at every meal with the aid of using proscribing entire grains, starchy vegetables, fruits, or dairy to 1/4 of the plate. So, there are a few ways to go about it, and it's really about personal preference, but remember that the best carb counting method for you is the one that addresses your medication and lifestyle needs. A registered dietitian nutritionist, RDN/RD, or certified diabetes care and education specialist, CDSs, can help you figure out what works best for you. How many carbs should I eat? As for the right quantity of carbs in keeping with a meal, there may be no magic quantity. How lots carbohydrates everybody wishes is in large component decided with the aid of using your body size and activity level. Appetite and starvation additionally play a role. In order to discern out what number of carbs you must be consuming, schedule an appointment together along with your RD/RDN or CDSs. They'll work out an eating plan especially for you. This service, while furnished by a dietitian, is known as Medical Nutrition Remedy. Diabetes Self-Management Education, DSME, sessions also may include creating an eating plan. During the sessions, you'll determine your carb needs and how to divide your carbs among your meals and snacks. Everybody's insulin response is going to be different, and we don't want to make the diet more restrictive than it needs to be to manage blood sugars. How many carbs are in my food? You can find how many carbs foods have by reading food labels. If a product doesn't have a food label, such as a whole piece of fruit or a vegetable, there are apps and other tools available to help you calculate. For example, the U.S. Department of Agriculture Food Composition Database has nutrition information for thousands of foods in a searchable format. The good news is, the longer you practice carb counting, the more you'll remember the carb content of the foods you commonly eat. There are 2 items on the nutrition facts label that you'll want to pay attention to when carb counting. 1 serving size. The serving size refers to how much a person usually eats or drinks, and all the information on the label is about this specific amount of food. If you eat more, you will need to account for the additional nutrients. For example, eating 2 or 3 servings of something means you will need to double or triple the number of grams of carbs, and all other nutrients, on the label in your calculations. 2 grams of total carbohydrates. This number includes all carbs, sugar, starch, and fiber. That's right, you don't have to worry about adding on grams of added sugars. They're included in the number of total carbs. The added sugars and other bullets below the total carbs listing are included to provide more information about what's in the food that you are eating. And while you don't need to worry about adding added sugars when it comes to counting carbs, you should still aim to minimize the amount of added sugar in the foods you eat. What about protein and fat? Carb counting might be easy if we best ate carbohydrate ingredients. However, food is typically a combination of carbohydrate, protein, and fat. A meal high in protein and fat can extra to how speedy the body absorbs carbs, which influences blood sugar degrees. A top-notch manner to recognize how meals influence your blood sugar is to preserve track of your numbers and discuss them together along with your diabetes care crew consisting of an RD/RDN and/or CDSs. Continuous glucose monitoring, CGM, or self-monitoring of blood glucose also can assist, particularly for insulin dosing. What should I eat? Whether you count each carb gram or use one of the other meal planning methods, you want to choose foods that are rich in nutrients. Opt for whole foods that are unprocessed and in their natural states, such as vegetables, fruits, whole grains, and lean proteins. Processed foods, such as packaged cookies, crackers, and other snack foods, usually contain added salt, sugar, carbohydrates, fat, or preservatives. While this sounds like a lot, don't be overwhelmed. Start by making small changes and sticking to them. Even small changes can have huge results.